Welcome to the Men of Action podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and I got the mega superstar supermodel in the house today. I got Dave, who is the Planet Fitness. He should be the spokesperson because he's there every day, 4 a.m. fitness journeys as he tackles obesity, as he recognized that he needed to lose a little bit of weight, and now he's ready to not only defeat obesity, he's gonna crush it. So, Dave, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thank you. It's my pleasure for being here, and thank you for having me.
Hey, I just love what you do. Between the daily encouragements, those little cat videos that end the night so well with, knowing that you're not just there helping yourself, but also the animals. Come on now. If I don't know about Man of Action, then I don't know what one is. So
thank you so much.
Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Dave Danna?
Sure. So up until last year, I was just an accountant who was in grad school down here in the deep South, doing a little bit of real estate on the side, just trying to make it through the crazy world like everyone else. I just turned 30 years old, nothing, particularly out of the ordinary, just a very normal life. I would describe it sort of middle-class American life. And in last June, I flew for the first time since the pandemic, and I had to get a seatbelt extender, which was probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever had to do in public, at least. And then I came home to my house, and I was walking up the stairs, and I realized I was sweating and I was out of breath just from walking up the stairs. And I said, "Oh, that's not good." And this happened right after the seatbelt extender incident.
Oh my God.
So I got out the scale. I had just moved, so had to dig through a couple of boxes. It wasn't exactly a priority in my life before then to be weighing myself. And I jumped on the scale just to see, what's going on. And it gave me an error message. And I assumed, I just moved. It's broken. It got broken in the move. Who knows what the movers do, right? And then I was thinking about it that night, before I ordered something on Amazon. And I realized, I wonder if it only goes up to 400 pounds or what the limit is, and I'm over it. So I checked the next day, and it did indeed only go up to 400 pounds. I say only, like a scale should need to go above that. But in my case, unfortunately, I was getting that error message because I was over 400 pounds, which I probably could have guessed, from the seatbelt extender on the airplane incident or the stairs incident. But, that was sort of my wake-up call, as it were, just, sort of going through the motions of life, doing my accounting job, taking my classes. I had been ignoring and lying to myself for a long time about the state of my physical and my mental health. And not being able to get a weight on your scale can be, just a little bit scary because, I never even thought about that there would be a limit on a scale before that moment. I just assumed you get on it to tell you your weight, right? It's not supposed to be an issue.
Right.
And so the next day I decided to start working on a diet and exercise. And I had no idea what to do in the gym. I say online that even today, I still really don't know exactly what I'm doing. And I'm not a nutritionist, and you'll find experts telling you to eat and do all sorts of different diets, eat this, eat that. Everybody has the opposite advice. So I thought, I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to do something radically different than I have before. And after about 4 weeks of sort of stumbling my way through some initial diet and exercise, at the end of June of 2022, I finally got 399.9 on the scale, which sounds like a big number, but it was a pretty big scale victory to me to not see that error message anymore. So I take that as my official starting weight because I don't know what my official starting weight was, but 399.9. And as of last week, I think I'm down to 307. So down about 90 some pounds, depending on exactly where I started. And as I say, I have a long way to go and a lot to learn, but that is sort of, that's the Dave Danna story for the last 10 months.
No, that's awesome though, that you kind of use that as your starting weight at the 399 and losing well over 90 pounds. That's remarkable.
Thank you.
And I can't imagine being that much overweight nor having to get a seatbelt extender. I'm not going to heard of a seatbelt extender. I've heard about people having to maybe rent out another seat or two. I've heard of that.
Well, I found out the hard way they do exist, and sometimes you need them. Although I guess we probably shouldn't need them, but yeah. And so, that was one of the first events sort of in public because, the pandemic happened. I've been mostly working at home. I hadn't been traveling a lot, and just on top of mental health issues and stress and work anxiety, school stress, and then everything going on with the pandemic, my weight had ballooned up to a point and been sort of not allowed to, but I hadn't even fully recognized it because I wasn't flying. I wasn't traveling. I was just, those couple of years, there were a lot fewer corporate events, a lot fewer social events, a lot fewer everything events. And so, I really had to make some drastic changes, fairly quickly because at that type of weight, it wasn't like, oh, I need to lose 25 pounds or even 50 pounds, right? Even 100 pounds, right? It was like, I need to lose some number that I don't know, but it's above 200, right? And like, that's not a small amount of weight. It's probably it's probably half my body weight. It's a full adult human man, right? Like, it's more than just, eat a little more salads, go for a walk. It's, it's drastic changes. And, I just turned 30 years old. I was in this new house, thinking about potentially, a future as a father, as a husband, wanting to be a healthy role model for future children, wanting to be around for a long time, wanting to make sure my parents didn't have to bury me. Right. So a lot of, once that seatbelt moment happened, then I couldn't get my own weight on the scale. And then thinking about how I just had my 30th birthday a couple months before that, a lot of deep thinking started happening. And I just, I had to start making some drastic changes immediately.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. I mean, we all have different versions of a wake-up call. I'm glad that you not only you answered the call, really, you took action to get your life better. And as we know, just eat a little bit less calories and just start working out. Even if you don't know what to do, just show up and do the best you can. And
Absolutely.
since your journey began, how have you been? Like, I see a lot of you posting pictures of yourself working out, but do you have someone at all that you work out with that can give you a little bit more guidance?
I do, to an extent. The issue with me is one of the things I wanted to do early on was build a routine that was going to be slow and steady and sustainable, not do some sort of crash diet or fad diet, and not do one of those like Biggest Loser things where I'm exercising a ton of hours in a day. And why I say that is because, unfortunately, it's worked out for me, so maybe fortunately, with working a full-time job and being in grad school, the only time I could build it into my schedule was early in the morning. So there's been plenty of people who've offered to help, and I have had a few sessions with a trainer, but I do get there between like 4:15 and 4:30 a.m. And I'll tell you, there's not a lot of trainers who are going to show up with me at that time in the morning. But what I've done is I've taken it very slowly. I've had a few sessions. I've been looking online a lot. Of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger has been giving me some lifting tips as well, which has been kind of mind-blowing. But my strategy in the gym, because I don't know what I'm doing, and I certainly didn't know anything, 9 or 10 months ago when I first went in, was that I'm walking in there at over 400 pounds. So, and I'm still walking in there every morning right at over 300 pounds. So really for me, it was to take it slowly. It was to take it steadily. It was to not risk injury because I wasn't sure that my mental health could take a setback like that. And to recognize that doing pretty much any exercise for 30, 40 minutes at 400 pounds was going to burn a couple hundred calories, was going to get my heart rate up, was going to get my blood pumping, was going to get me sweating, because honestly, like every time I stood up and sat down, that was like lifting 250 pounds, right? You know what I mean? So I wanted to make sure exercise was part of my journey, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't stressing about it. So I was like, I'm going to go 5 days a week, and I'm just going to take my time and learn how to exercise and learn what to do over 6 months, over a year, over 2 years, however long it takes. And the same thing with the diet, right? My diet needed to change drastically, but I didn't want to stress about it. I didn't want to worry about it, right? There's so many people, when you look on like nutrition, Twitter, or even just anywhere on the internet, where they get caught up in these like minutia and these little details. Like, should you really eat like broccoli? And it's like, that's not my issue, right? My issue isn't whether I should, or it's that I weigh over 400 pounds. Like in individual food that I wasn't quite eating perfectly wasn't my issue. It was a massive amount of binge eating, far too much fast food and junk food and highly processed food and soda and alcohol, right? Like it wasn't these little tweaky details. So what I wanted to make sure I did was find something that was sustainable, that was slow and steady, and that allowed me to learn and to tweak as I went. And I wanted to make sure that I was seeing a doctor at the same time, getting some blood work done, right? Because I don't want to learn a year or two down the road that this was all wonderful, but I've been eating way too much sugar and now I'm diabetic, right? Or, something like that. So every guy who gets to that size, I think, has tried dieting and has tried exercising before and has failed over and over. And I think there's some sort of saying about doing something over and over again, expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So I didn't want to just do the same things over and over. So I wanted to take a different approach, and I wanted to take my time. And the other thing is I wanted to post accountability pictures. I'm not a social media guy. I had never done it beforehand. I don't have like a personal Instagram or anything or another Twitter. I just wanted to post under my real names for accountability purposes, gym selfies and weigh-in selfies, so that I couldn't lie to myself anymore because there was a picture that was on there. I couldn't pretend, oh, I'm doing great if it's just obvious. I can see my weigh-in weight from 3 weeks ago and it's the same as now, so I'm not doing great, right? Right. So that was part of the journey as well. For the first time, instead of bottling it all up and pushing it all down and doing it in private and lying to myself and failing, I was going to do it in public. I was going to do it slow and steady. I was going to do it under my own name. So I had an accountability trail of gym selfies, of weigh-in pictures, of food I was eating, so I could look back on it and see, am I really making progress, or am I, because I can lie to myself in the mirror pretty easily, right? But if I have this big long trail, I thought, maybe it'll work this time. And I can't say for sure since I'm less than halfway there, but 10 months in, I'm pretty happy with how it's going.
Well, I gotta say, I love how you do your comparison pictures. Because for not being a social media guy, you do a phenomenal job. Because
thank you.
Especially the zoom in picture, there's a picture where you just look, your face kind of looks like more lethargic. You just look very pale.
Yes. Yeah.
And just so drawn out, tired, sluggish, and just like miserable. Like you look terrible, honestly.
Yeah, I look 10 years older too. Yeah.
You're like vibrant, you're alive, and you can really tell how much gains. I mean, I've noticed, I've been following you for a couple of months now.
Yeah.
And it's been so cool to see your journey and like how much you progress and seeing the weight come off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're in like the span, I think I've been following let's say 3 months at least.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the smiles, you're getting up there, you're encouraging other people, doing some snapshots of other people you're
yes, I try.
Also on the weight loss journey. And somehow I gotta love Twitter for this and however the algorithm works. Because now all I'm getting are two main things: people wanting to be sober and people wanting to lose weight.
There you go. Positive trends. Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to have that, and especially with Arnold. I mean, the GOAT, the
exactly.
Who made bodybuilding kind of giving you a shout out, and like all the platforms have been able to go on. I mean, you're just an incredible man who just a typical guy, honestly, who wanted to lose some weight and encourage some other people. And now you become this, honestly, I know it's a little bit early to say this, but supermodel for other people to lose that weight. Like I remember watching the Times during the pandemic, watching My 400-Pound Life, My 500-Pound Life, something like that.
Yeah.
And I have a love and hate relationship with that doctor on that show.
Yes.
He's a bit brash, but
he is very brash. Yeah.
He knows he needs to be a little bit brash because he knows that if you don't change the mindset, the weight's going to come back. Yeah, and it's a tough procedure.
Yeah.
Liposuction and all that, it's tough. But what I also love about the show is that they also tackle the mental health issue. That these people who are drastically overweight have some type of mental health challenge. A lot of it's trauma, a lot of it's depression and anxiety. And when you have all those, you don't really feel motivated to do anything. And food is such a comfort. That's how we get through life, is through comfort. So
absolutely. And I try to talk about that. It's more difficult for me to discuss because, I can't show people a picture on a scale. I can't show people 2 different gym selfies that are 9 months apart, right? But the mental health journey has been more important than the exercise, honestly, and probably equal to the diet, right? I think a lot of times, people fail a lot. I'll speak for myself. I failed in the past because I didn't tackle the mindset side. I didn't tackle the mental health side. Especially we as men have real difficulty talking about topics like anxiety or stress or depression. And so It's still hard for me to talk about because, again, people ask me all the time for like advice and whatnot. And like, I'm really not an expert, and like, I'm just tweaking things as I go. But I know that one thing that has been different about this time taking this journey that has apparently, at least so far, 10 months in, worked, is that I have been far more open and honest with myself about some of the pressure I was putting myself on, some of the stress I was feeling, some of the anxiety that was building up, some of the depression that was happening, probably some like food addiction or binge eating stuff that was going on, right? And, to get over 400 pounds and still gaining by 30 years old, it's not just that you're like drinking too many sodas, right? There has to be a mental component there to get you to be more than double the weight you should be, by the time you hit 30. And so I think I said this, but like exercise for me doesn't actually, I don't think, lose me that much weight. I don't burn that many calories. However, it provides a huge boost to my confidence, a huge boost to my mental health, a huge boost to my optimism, makes me feel positive and productive when I've done my exercise for the day before the sun even rises. And then where the weight loss comes in is the diet and the mental health and the mindset part of it. And like you said, I try to talk about it sometimes, and other people are, I'm not the only one, of course, but it's just such a critical component. And I think I know it's very hard for men to talk about because I'm one of the ones who didn't talk about it up until, 5 or 6 months ago.
Right. Well, there's just a lot of stigma against guys talking about mental health. Like, we have to have it all together.
Yeah.
Especially sometimes with certain communities kind of coming up like, that doesn't exist. Like, anxiety doesn't exist. I'm immune to all that stuff. And it's just like, there's different levels of anxiety.
Of course.
Let's see you off type of deal.
Of course.
But in all seriousness, I mean, sometimes that little bit of anxiety can be good in small doses. It's like
absolutely. It's a motivator.
It's a wake-up call.
Definitely was. Yes.
Now it's important to then be honest with yourself so that way you can better take care of you. And that's the one thing I really emphasize with a lot of people when I coach them and do this professionally is tell people, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to stop lying to yourself saying that everything's okay, everything's dandy, because everything's not dandy when you have basically a donut here, a pizza here, and somehow you got the third arm coming out.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's very critical that, for me at least, early on in the process, was that look in the mirror. I'm not advocating that we men sit around and talk about our feelings all the time. I don't think that's, necessarily great for us either. However, just admitting that to get to me to be over 400 pounds while I'm, successful professionally, in a relationship, I have a great relationship with my parents, right? There has to be something going on in my head. There has to be something mental health wise in my head that's causing me to have this issue related to eating and related to weight. And there's no shame in admitting that if it's followed up then by tackling it, by working on it, by taking, even just baby steps towards those goals every single day. And, I still have bad physical health days, bad mental health days, right? But I'm in a much better position that I will continue to work on it. I'll continue to talk about it when I need to talk about it, right? We don't have to talk our feelings all the time, but we can't also just pretend they don't exist and we never have them.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be lying to yourself. So, I mean, really, the best way to really do it is to recognize what you're feeling and think to yourself, okay, what can I do about it?
Yeah.
What can I do? What do I have control over in a situation? Especially when it comes to, binge eating, bulimia, anorexia, a lot of things that people go through, especially with, with men, especially with bodybuilders. I mean, they go through a lot of those body images and everything.
Exactly.
Because of the muscles and the genetics and, it's basically called body dysmorphia. Really,
absolutely.
That you don't like your body.
Absolutely.
So,
I find often in these, in basically everything, almost not everything, but a lot of things in American society these days, we are captured by extremes, whether that's in politics, whether it's in the culture wars, whether it's in our diet, our exercise, right? We have, I don't know if we call it like bigorexia or whatever it is, when you get those massive bodybuilders, right? And then we have anorexia. And then at the same time, we have whatever it is, my 700, my 600 pound life, like all all these extremes, and, you know, and same with the diet, right? Only eat meat, never eat meat, right? Same with exercising, right? Never do cardio, only do cardio, right? It's just, that was part of the issue that I had at prior times when I started this journey and failed before, was information overload. Was there's so much information, there's so much entertainment, there's so much infotainment, right? How do I cut through the noise to find the signal? And I just thought, you know, at this point, I'm going to try something, and I'm going to tweak it along the way, physically, mentally, with the diet, spiritually, with my faith, right? And we'll see how it goes. We'll give it a few months. We'll document the process. And I'm not looking, to get super skinny. I'm not looking to get super jacked, but like, I need to be healthy so that I can get some of those opportunities, so that I can seize some of those opportunities that are out there in front of me, so my blood work can look good, my scale looking good, so that I can look good, so I can feel good. And I really had to put aside a lot of those initial sort of feeling of helplessness and overwhelmingness when you first get on the internet and look for, like, what should I do with a diet? And it's just like, boom, everything.
Pretty much, you get, you should go vegan, you should go carnivore.
Exactly.
I gotta say, I think one of the one times, and I love that you do this, like, rate my plate. I love that. Rate my plate with Dave. So gotta check that out, because he doesn't play the chef. I gotta say, like, the way you're cooking and everything, you make me hungry half the time.
Thank you. I'm learning it. I can pretty much cook only one thing, but I cook it over and over, and it tastes great. Steak and chicken and some vegetables. That's right. Yeah, it's working for me. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, but I remember, like, you posted, I said, hey, it looks really good. Maybe just add some vegetables, get that fiber. Yeah. And, like, it just blew up, because it was just like, haha, you don't know what you can do. You can eat whatever you want, as long as you eat under a certain amount. And then, nope, you think you know yourself. All you have to do is just eat meat. That's all I do. I'm like,
it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Especially when you're trying to lose weight, you don't have too much protein, because especially with you, you're not working out, excessively at this point.
No, I do.
And I know you don't have any classes.
Yeah.
So, especially when you said how much it hurts you and everything else, that you want to take it easy and gradually get into it. And if you have too much protein, you don't burn out, that can become extra fat. So that way it could be that, preventing you from losing that weight. So,
absolutely, yes. It's crazy. It's crazy whenever you post a gym selfie or a food picture or pretty much anything else online. It's amazing that you can. Maybe I didn't realize this, I guess, because, again, like, I didn't do social media before, and I didn't expect them to follow me. But now that there is following, like, there'll just be like 100 comments, just like completely contradictory. And again, it's just like, like this, this is the problem that I do think a lot of, like, very morbidly obese people, like I still am, and like I was, 100 pounds ago, is that, like, these people look like they know what they're doing. They look like they're in shape. Some of them have impressive credentials, and they're saying the polar opposites.
Well, that's why you should always consult with your doctor and your nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
I know that you've been posting your blood work, and it's amazing how just in a year, how much it's improved.
Yeah, so that was another thing. I had avoided going to the doctor for probably close to 10 years. I mean, I hadn't been probably since I was, like a freshman in college, whenever you have to go, like, to get those, like, college paperwork signed or whatever, way back in the day. So, that was probably 2011 for me. And then I don't think I had gone probably since then until September of 2022. And I had, like, I'm an accountant, right? I had insurance pretty much that whole time. And so it was just because I didn't want to see the results. I knew what they were going to say. I was busy deluding myself and lying to myself, right? But part of the journey, a few months in, right? Because, you have to get, intake and whatnot. So it took a few months. So I started the journey in June, and I had my initial doctor's appointment in September. And a lot of the numbers were right at the sort of, like, scary range. Like, A1C was in the pre-diabetic range, glucose in the pre-diabetic range. My resting heart rate was over 100, which is concerning. Blood pressure was 140 over, like, 90, which, again, is, like, you're not super concerning, but also, like, concerning because you're 30, right? It really shouldn't be anywhere near there. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so, LDL was a bit too high. Triglycerides were a bit too high. And so that is when, in September of last year, I decided I needed to tighten up the diet so far. And I had already lost, I was probably down to like 370, 375 at that point. So I thought I was doing good. And then all this blood work came back and he was like, we're borderline medicating you for like 4 different things. And I was like, oh, so like I'm not doing so good. but then I tightened up my diet. I stepped up my exercise a little bit and I went back at the end of January and the A1C had dropped into the healthy range. My resting heart rate was at least not in the hundreds or 90s or 80s anymore, although still higher than I'd like. My blood pressure was down to 126 over 77. A lot of numbers, triglycerides and LDL had dropped, which is part of what I was really worried about, because you see my plates. I do eat a lot of meat, right? But they're both moving in the right direction. Not quite ideal yet. But again, back in January, I was still, 340 something pounds. So I'm hopeful that I, plan on getting the blood work done twice a year. I think that's what my insurance will pay for. But I wanted to make sure, like I said at the beginning, that this was slow, steady, and sustainable. And part of that is, checking with the doctor twice a year, getting the blood work done, right? We can't be out here doing some sort of diet that's going to backfire or that I can't keep up long term. So that's all part of the journey. Although, to be honest, I'm really not a fan of going to the doctor, but I made a commitment to myself. We're going to go twice a year, get the blood work done, get the physical done, and take it from there.
I don't think anyone's really a fan of the doctor. I don't think I've ever met anyone that just says, "Yeah, I love going to the doctor."
Can't imagine.
All that stuff is more of a what they're going to say.
Absolutely.
But it's important, especially if you have insurance and you're paying for it. I mean, it's one of those benefits that we get that we should really be more diligent.
And especially if you have health concerns like me, right? Like I was, I hadn't ever had blood work done before, but there was no way I was, over 400 pounds and had good blood work, right? I mean, I didn't want to see the numbers, but at the same time, I needed to see the numbers so that I could start making some progress on them.
And you did. I mean, that's why you're a man of action. I mean,
surely, yes.
You really said it. And I love that you're careful and you're smart about taking it slow and gradual. That's really smart, because I knew back when I was in I think it was my first year. I think it was my first year in grad school, I want to say. Like, I remember talking to someone who wanted to get healthy. And this is someone who would drink, let's say, 64 ounces of coffee, cream and sugar, and a lot. They had a lot. They were working a lot. They did the program in a year, which you could. You graduate. So I graduated with social work. So if you had social work as a bachelor's, you went for that, you could actually do the program in about a year.
Wow.
And not the smartest. It's mostly just get it done and get it quick. To each their own. But this person wanted to be completely healthy. I'm like, okay, just go slow, because you're drinking like a lot of coffee, a lot of sugar. You can make yourself sick.
Absolutely.
Sure enough, they did. They were sick for a few days because they went from immediately glass of coffee, cream. They crashed because they went. So please be careful and consult your doctor, consult nutritionists, consult like the experts who know what they're doing, who can do this safely. That's the most smart you can be.
And even doing a slow and steady weight loss, if you do 2 pounds a week, something like that, that's over 100 pounds in a year, over 200 pounds in 2 years, and that, I mean, depending on what your starting weight is, right? But over 400 pounds doing 2 pounds a week is very sustainable. Over 300 pounds, like I am, should be very sustainable, right? Again, like obviously consult with your doctor. But I've done those fad diets, those crash diets before, where you lose 10 pounds in a week, you lose 25 pounds in a month, something crazy, and you always fall off the bandwagon. You always feel miserable doing it, and then you always gain all the way back and then some. And it's like, that's exactly what I didn't want to do again this time, right? It's like, it's time to take a year. It's time to take 2 years, right? Do it slower, do it steadier, find something that'll be sustainable. I'm happy taking 3 years, right? Not exactly my ideal, but
as long as the weight comes up and doesn't come back.
Exactly
that's all
right.
you care.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and pretty much what you're doing is what's called the harm reduction theory, which means you slowly change your life and you slowly take away things. So for some people, if let's say they drink 10 pops a day, I might be drinking 8 pops and then gradually going there. So it's a gradual process. It does take longer. And I know people don't like baby steps, but baby steps, babies.
Yeah.
Because that's how you're going to really live your life. It's a little bit of time. I talk to people all day long. They expect their lives. They are so unhappy with their lives. They want to do a complete 180 in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
Seriously. And versus find out like 1 or 2 things to focus on and then going from there. That's what you did. You focus on getting up at 4 a.m. and going to the gym and doing whatever you could. But that was just showing up that day.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. And even with my diet, like the first things I did, I didn't know what to eat. I wasn't sure what would work for me. I wasn't sure what the most healthy approach was. But at this point, at over 400 pounds by 30, I knew what I should probably stop eating or what I should cut back on. So the first thing I did when I was starting my diet wasn't eating healthy per se, but it was cutting out what I knew was unhealthy. So I cut out a lot of the ice cream, a lot of the soda, a lot of the fast food. If the food got handed to me through my car window and I ate it alone in a parking lot, I stopped doing that, right? It wasn't necessarily that what I replaced it with was like the highest quality, like grass-fed organic vegetables and whatnot, but I was cutting back on a lot of the junk food, the fast food, the processed food, the packaged food, the alcohol, drinking my calories, because I realized that all that stuff was kind of bad. And then months later, after I had that blood work done, after I'd lost 35 pounds, I started thinking more about like, okay, like this is good, but I'm still eating probably more than I should. I'm still eating like a lot of processed food, even though it's not junk food, it's still pretty processed, right? I'm still probably eating too late at night. And then I tweaked it more and dialed it in a little more. And again, like I say, I'm no expert and I'm still tweaking it as I go, right? I'm experimenting a little bit with intermittent fasting. Don't know if I'm a huge fan of that, but I'm tweaking things as I go. I'm seeing what's working, what's not working. And, same with some of the diet, I'm not, I guess I'm not one to be here preaching a certain diet or a certain exercise routine, more so just if you're at the size I was, start doing something, start eliminating what you know is bad, right? You probably know you should be doing some sort of exercising, right? I can't tell you what to do, right? Because I don't know, right? But some activity, right? A couple of times a week. And then as you move, as you learn, as you're taking it slow and steady, right? If this journey of mine is a year long, is 2 years long, is 3 years long, heck, if it's a lifetime journey, right? I can take my time and figure out exactly my diet and my exercise as I go along that journey.
Yeah, and again, you're just looking at just being healthy for not just for you, your future wife, and your future kids, and for your family.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, of course.
So as your focus, let that be your focus. And
yes,
I think that's what people get so wrapped up as all of a sudden they want to become this person because they inspire to be. You can inspire to be them, but remember, don't compare yourself to them. This is your own journey. If your own journey is going to be healthy, go from in a year, 2 years, what have you, from 500 to 400 to 300 to 200, then do it. Just be smart about it, be healthy, be safe, and take action. I mean, that's what we need to do more of is take action. If you have some concerns with your mental health, find a coach, find a counselor, find a therapist. There's no shame, especially with men. There's no shame in seeking out help. It's not a weakness. A weakness is not doing anything about it. Still being in pain. It's actually going out to seek the help that you need to live the best life possible.
Agreed. And that initial action, that very first few steps, those are the hardest and they're the most important. And then it becomes a routine. It becomes discipline, right? It's not easy to wake up at 4 a.m. like I did this morning, like I'm going to do tomorrow morning, but it's a lot easier than it was 9 months ago or 10 months ago. And I'm thinking about weigh-in Wednesday. I'm thinking about last weigh-in Wednesday. I'm thinking about I'm already down 90 some pounds, right? I can't let Arnold Schwarzenegger down. So I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. tomorrow. And if I need to hit snooze once, that's okay, but we're not doing it more than once, right? 4:10 at the latest, I'm out of bed tomorrow morning. And if I need a little bit of motivation, if the discipline and routine isn't there, which it usually is, but not 100%, right? I still have those bad days when I don't want to get out of bed at 4 a.m. If the discipline and routine isn't there, that's when I think about my future as a husband, as a father, right? Think about my parents, think about all the opportunities that are there in life, professionally, academically, with whatever side business I want to do, right? And remember how it felt at over 400 pounds when I saw those slipping away because, I was busy having difficulty with stairs and folding chairs and seatbelts, right? Business opportunities were the last thing on my mind, right? Because I was more worried about whether the chair was going to hold my weight. And I don't ever want to go back to that. And so for me, the routine and discipline takes over most of the time. But that initial motivation is what gets you going, got me going, at least for the first week and the first month and even the first 2 months. And even today, when I'm having not so good days, I fall back on that motivation when I need it. And I think that plays into the mental health aspects and the mindset change that's so critical as part of the journey. Again, difficult to articulate, and I can't show a scale that shows mindset or anything, but a very critical part is that mindset of mental health.
Yeah, no. And hey, you're the man. I mean,
Thank you.
you're just growing up and you're inspiring so many people. That's what I just love about you, man, honestly.
I appreciate
Just
it.
not only like you were so brave and courageous, not just to step up and go into the gym, but also to post your journey.
Yeah,
especially on social media. We both know social media can be very nice and very encouraging, but there's also a little bit of a dark side of social media. But for the most part, though, I don't see anyone really. I just see all positive and love, like that flow to you, man, and like everyone that follows you and that even comments.
It's been surprisingly positive, especially given Twitter's recent reputation. I mean, like, it's been a much better experience than I would have thought, especially, given the fact that I'm taking it very slowly and given the fact that I did start very large. Again, it's been one of those things that was very eye-opening to me, and I wish I had realized early, is just how many people want someone in my situation, or me specifically, to succeed, want me to hit my goals, want to help, want to be supportive, want to make me feel like I belong in those places where I might feel like I don't belong, like the gym or like the doctor's office or like a therapist's office or like a church, right? Any of those, a health food store, any of those places that weren't super common when my mental health was bad and my weight was over 400 pounds. And also like posting gym selfies, on Twitter, just overwhelmingly positive. And like genuinely helpful, which, you're right, is not the reputation social media has, especially this day and age.
Right. So, Dave, as we wrap up, what would you tell someone else in your shoes? Someone who's 400 pounds, they just stepped on the scale and they read an error message.
Yeah.
What would you tell that person?
What I wish I knew earlier, and which I would have told myself years earlier, honestly, is the amount of in-person support that you already have around you and online support that you already have around you that you don't recognize and don't realize, because you're bottling it all up inside and you're pushing it all down and you're trying to handle it all by yourself. And I think there's some quote or something where it says, like, no man is an island. And that was just critical for me to recognize. And I don't think I had really ever realized it before. But you can ask for help, you can ask for support, and people won't think you're a failure, and they won't think you're weak, and they want to help you. They want you to succeed. And they want you to feel like you can reach your goals and chase those dreams, even if you're taking it very slowly and very steadily. And as I have seen and demonstrated, and it's been very surprising to me, that applies both online, but also in person. And I wish that I had recognized that earlier, regardless of the exact diet model you build, the exact exercise plan you follow. Mm-hmm. There are people who want you to be successful, who want to take the journey with you, to help you along the journey, who aren't going to look down on you. The gym, walking in at the first time, very intimidating at over 400 pounds. I don't even think I lasted 10 minutes on the treadmill, and I didn't know how to use anything else. And still intimidating some days walking in when I see the parking lot's a little more full, although it doesn't really get full at 4 a.m., but I see a few more cars than normal at 300 pounds. And despite those initial concerns and that initial intimidation, has been one of the most supportive, one of the most inclusive, one of the most helpful groups of people that I could have ever imagined and be completely surprised by. So again, those places where you don't feel like you belong, you feel like you're out of your comfort zone, I would encourage you to take that first step and to try to recognize, and I know how hard it is because I didn't do it for years, that the people in those situations, they want to help you, and they want to be there for you, and they want you to succeed, and they're not going to judge you and they understand that everyone starts at their own starting point and everyone is fighting their own demons. My apologies if I rambled a little bit there, but it really is about those initial steps, that initial action. It's really, really hard. But then once you do it, you realize how much hidden support you had and how much strength within you had. And I wish I could go back and tell 400 plus pound Dave, a couple years ago, that I can start eating healthy and go to the gym and take it slow and not know what I'm doing, and it will work out. But I guess I realized that eventually. So
Yes, you did. So you heard it from Dave, because he talks about this all the time. Fight those demons.
Every day.
Fight those demons every day. You heard him right here. Fight those demons every day. Find a group that's going to support you, that's not going to judge you, that's not going to be critical of you, that's going to hold you accountable. And remember, don't do this alone. Get someone to help you. You don't have to fight alone, because we're stronger together as a team. This has been Men's Lifeline podcast. Remember, be a man of action. You can do this and be the best version of yourself. Have a blessed day, everyone. Bye.